welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and today we have the privilege to be with the person whom I call my favorite Windsor, Emily Windsor Cragg. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. I'm trying to get rid of some windows here that, oops. I think we have some problems with this. Here we go.
I know. Emily has been greatly hacked in anticipation of this interview.
Yes. No kidding. Da, 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 da.
Important security message.
I think this is a good thing for people to hear. What happens to us? You know that? Because it's happened to you too.
Oh, it happens. You know, there's a tremendous effort to keep the voices of honest research.
Look at this.
Out. And there's all sorts of noise. Is that phones and things?
Hello? I'm on the radio, honey. Talk to you later.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to edit this out, so...
That's okay. People need to know this.
Oh, okay.
That it happened.
Okay, now let me jump into the topic here because I'm sure people tuned in for the topic. The topic really is to look at all of these alternative theories that are coming up. The flat Earth, the donut Earth, the torus Earth, oh my gosh, they picked us up like if we were a drugged buffalo and they're taking us over to Orion Earth. And you're right. What's wrong with us? Why we can't perceive curvature where it actually exists? Aha, a donut has flat edges all the way around it. That's why we see the Earth at flat. My theory about Earth's having been moved into solar cluster status is included in my book, Transcendence Now, so people can look at the evidence I've got to work with. Okay, so people are all flutter now.
Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Moving out of our addiction to the matrix that we're on, you know, Copernicus model of everybody's revolving around everybody else, and it's all this geometric nicety. So tell it like it is.
Sure. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Deprogram us from the matrix.
From the matrix. Okay.
Walk us out of this thing.
I was listening to Linda Moulton Howe for a couple of hours, and she establishes and validates and verifies my experience that there are a lot of people intuiting and hearing information from other dimensions, sources, spaces, entities, divinity, to whatever you want to call it, okay? In the old days, it was called prophecy, okay? When the seed of Abraham wrote down in their scriptures what was the prophecies, what were going to happen, and all the begats and all of that, okay? That's this process we're into. And we live in a culture where the official dogma doctrine is that all that is scientific is what you can physically prove and show and point to. At the same time, everything that's essential is invisible to the eye. Gets real freaky. All right. Now, you know, for years, it's been about 12 years, I've been working on NASA photographs because I was a Xerox technician. I used to fix my customers' copies, and then I became a trainer, and I show other people how to fix copies. So what I do is I fix NASA pictures, digital imagery. And what I've found over that period of time is that they don't just lie about this and that. They lie about everything, okay? NASA's in the PR business for an agenda coming from a layer of leadership that has been dealing with space and ETs going back to the National Security Agency in 1947 and the NSA and the NRO and NASA. That's all that one big, it's another form of Disneyland, okay? Because they've constructed a reality for us with their graphics and their insistence that this planet developed by itself, okay, over billions of years of time, and nothing will ever change. This is their mindset, and they're committed to it. I have 20 respondents at NASA that I've been trying to get, look at this, this is not the same as this is not the same as this, trying to get them to free their minds from the box that they're in, and they can't do it because the culture is so strong. The secular, materialist, maybe someday we'll see something and we'll find life somewhere in the universe. They're still stuck in that space. So we know from history, thanks to Immanuel Velikovsky's where I started, okay, and so forth, about the Anunnaki, that they return every 3,616 years like clockwork. Fine. And it's time for them to return. Okay. And so beginning in the 60s, Velikovsky and Harrington and the other astronomers who are long since dead began prophesying and predicting, okay, something is going to happen. Well, apparently what has happened is not what NASA, NSA, NRO expected. Okay, they expected that the flat Earth map was a mistake. Go away.
Sorry.
They expected the flat Earth map was a mistake forever, and that, go away, that if we were on a flat Earth, we're always on a flat Earth.
As soon as possible, you will be guided through the removal of the adware, spyware, and virus on your computer. Seeing these pop-ups means you have a virus installed on your computer, which puts the security of your
I cannot
What exactly is happening?
Strongly advise that you call the number provided to get your computer fixed before you continue accessing other websites online.
Okay, now, okay, so we have the United Nations map, and that is called the Flat Earth map because the center of it is the North Pole and all the continents fan out from the North Pole. That's the flat one. Then we have the spherical map, and we have one in between, that's the donut map. Now, we know in human blood, the red blood cells travel as a sphere, and when you come to rest, they relax into a donut shape. Okay? Now, this reality, this metaphor, really sparked something in me because, as you know, in Path to Orion, we talk about Comet Elenin placing itself as an obstruction between our planet and good old Sol and peeling us out of that orbit. When we peeled out of the orbit with Planet X wrapped around us, we're too heavy because that's all dark matter. We drop through the gravity well and we start plummeting toward Orion. Now, how do we know? It doesn't take a brain surgeon to look at the sky at night. Hello? Look at Sirius, the dog star. It's very small and faint. Look at Orion. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We're getting closer to Orion somehow, okay? So that means we're mobilized and mobilizing and we're moving. Now, what happens to a water balloon when you drop it against a slight pressure? It becomes a donut. So our water balloon is dropping against a slight pressure, it's a donut. Now, if we hit bottom, I guess maybe we could be a platter again, okay, if we hit bottom. But you see, the planet, because matter is mostly space, has a lot of elasticity and wiggle room in it. And so it can assume different shapes. And that's why when people argue that the earth is a flat earth, or it is a sphere, or it is this, or it is that, I'm asking, wait a minute, what shape is it now? What shape is it now? So that's where I am with this particular controversy. And I talked to a gentleman today at NRO about that. And I keep them up to date, on my discoveries, because there's more than one way to discover what's true. The facts of the matter in physical processes and cause and effects is one way to know what's true. But intuiting and hearing the thoughts that are coming at us from the cosmos is another valid, historically, way to know what's true. What I have found in scripture is that the Bible is a really neat little summary of what's in Sumerian records and in the studies and in the book of Enoch and in the, not the Course in Miracles so much, but the Urantia book and Oahspe, that the Bible is a handy little summary, but I don't see any reason to make an idol out of it and worship it and put its belief systems up on an altar somehow. Because we have to deal with causes and effects. Here in third density physical, it doesn't help us a whole lot if we internalize an ideology that works perhaps in heaven itself. They have their own ideology to cope with. They have their own kind of thought barriers and thought groups and factions, factions. The Anunnaki are just as divided into factions as we are, because Marduk has been following the Emerald Covenant, and Enki and Enlil, between the two of them, struggle with the monarchy and law and individuality. They're struggling with the same concepts that we are. And so I don't have a problem with the big fight in, are we a platter, a disc, a donut, or a sphere, because I see all of those possibilities as equally valid. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, let me sort of read from something that you have written, and then ask you to kind of expand on it and elucidate it for people. And I'm just going to kind of pick and choose from different sentences, but just so you can take from them and then kind of elucidate from these different thoughts. The reason one doesn't see any curvature is that the surface has been spread so far into a rotating toroid shape that it appears flat, with our tiny firmament atmosphere on the inside and our tiny techno-sun. And on the outside of the spread out toroid, the rest of the sky is still there, and it also rotates in and out of view with the firmament. The immediate effect is that the inner firmament contains the Anunnaki reality in dark matter, and the outermost surface of the toroid we're now on is transparent to view from straight on, so we're cloaked, the whole planet, as we plummet straight south toward Orion. Not quite finished yet.
Okay.
We're in hostile territory because Yahweh has declined to observe and enforce the Emerald Covenant Treaty, so we're getting out of here. That treaty was negotiated over objection after the Lyran Wars, in which Alfred Draconis obliterated Lyran society essentially because they needed food, and Lyrans were easy to catch and eat. So in the treaty, only 4 white races were protected by law, as if that meant anything, from being assaulted as food. The problem is the rest of the races were not spoken of and are presumed to be merely part of the landscape. So take it from there.
Okay. Well, the part about Yahweh's perceptions of these 2 galaxies was given to me 20 years ago, back in the 90s. And I just wrote it down and thought to myself, I'm never going to be able to talk about this. Okay. And in the intervening years, that story of his about what it's like to be in the 2 galaxies, Milky Way and Sagittarius, has never changed. It has never budged. And what I finally have been able to fill in the spaces there, the 9 and the Christos founders, who are at the center of these galaxies, are, yes, his children, but they have an inflated notion of their own selves. They're really into ego. I don't know if they have what is called the fractal virus or what, but they have insisted on a form of law in which diversity, the diversity of natural life, of our DNA, and the idea that we can adopt any harmless thought that we wish. You know, I could believe the moon is made of green cheese. Does that hurt you? No. I can believe in Santa Claus, the tooth fairy, you know. I can believe that Shopping Channel is my best choice for today. Okay. There are all kinds of harmless things that I can believe. Well, unfortunately, in these 2 galaxies, which have been expanding the whole time because they have predatory leadership, okay, and only expands so far, and then what goes up has to come down. Yahweh's been dealing with these leadership groups that have no respect for diversity, so that when in Lyra 1 million years ago, the Alfred Draconi, who have changed their mental space since then, but back then they were somewhat primitive. They were like we are. We have cattle and pigs and chickens, and they had little people to eat. They had to eat something. The dragons had that problem too before them. So the Alfred Draconi set upon Lyra and pretty much obliterated that whole culture by eating the people. Now, in the Bible, the story of the Nephilim is the same story. The Nephilim were too large to live on the land without being predators, so they began actually eating people. And that was the alarming thing that got Yahweh talked into having the flood to get rid of all the Nephilim. Unfortunately, he got rid of a lot of other nice people too, but that's another story. So the problem of predation is visited upon us in some cases as abductions. There are people actually missing now, 1 million a year. Now, how is it that that has occurred? By treaty. The Greada Treaty allowed abductions for experimental purposes in return for technology. We have treaties pending now called the TPP treaties, the Technology Transfer Treaties. And what you and I have been really looking at and deploring is the amount of trafficking in children and trafficking in body parts and trafficking in drugs and trafficking in sex slavery. And we have to wonder how much of that is being driven by these ET treaties. And what I get from Yahweh is, yes, that's the behavior of this neighborhood in Milky Way and Sagittarius. is that the indigenous spacefaring peoples are into trafficking people. They're into trafficking souls. They're into transhumanism. They want to create their own resurrections, utilizing souls that they can get from here, third density, which are very, very resilient and hardy, which they don't have in their fifth and sixth densities, and then implant our souls in their containers, their bodies, and expect to have very strong members of their society that way. Okay, so our planet has become a business enterprise marketing souls and children and a transhumanist strategies. And that is not what Yahweh had in mind when he put this all together, okay? At the same time, these two galaxies, which have been preying on other people, and they have expanded as far as they can expand, they are due to implode. Okay, so that's Yahweh's reason to want to get out of here, because we don't want to live by the norms and limits and boundaries of the peoples in these two galaxies in the first place. We don't want to be eaten and abducted in the second place. And this is not a safe place to be in the third place. So that is why Yahweh instructed or directed the Anunnaki, whose planet Nibiru follows on, I guess, about 5 years behind us in the same path. He either instructed or directed them to do the sun switch when Soho Lascaux, that sun, began to fail, which was about 2007, that sun began to fail. And if you look at the Soho Lascaux daily satellite images today, like I did yesterday, you'll find some surprising content elements under all the colors. Once you peel the colors off, there are human figures walking around all over it. It's no longer a sun, but because NASA's satellites are still there photographing it and still doing their photoshopping of it, they portray that sun, which we left behind in 2011, as a danger to us because of the flares that are going to get us. You know, they always have a paranoid interpretation of a physical event. Okay, so when the planet X wrapped around us and we went through the gravity well, and instead of being a round sphere, we kind of flatten out as a result of dropping down this I don't know, cylinder, or what, I don't know what the consistency of the matter we're dropping through, but apparently there's enough matter there to change the shape of our planet somewhat. Of course, I have no way to know to what extent. Is it a fat torus? Is it a skinny torus? Who can tell? But what is apparent from the flat Earth controversy, the flat Earth documentary, what is apparent is wherever you take a landscape photograph now, it's really flat. I mean, it's really, really flat. There is no curvature. So that leads me to believe, if you know about a torus, any point on the torus is going to have a flat horizon. Okay, so we're torus now. Well, that's no big deal. Now, what happens on the bottom? I don't know. Do we have any pictures of the Earth? I didn't realize what a problem that is. Because if you look up pictures of Earth in Google, what you get is a lot of different versions of a Apollo 17 photograph that was taken, 1972? That's all you can find. You can find simulations, and in fact, a former NASA graphics manager has made a bunch of YouTube videos to discuss in very disparaging terms how NASA has simulated Earth pictures and International Space Station pictures, and they take them underwater so that people look like they're weightless. And of course, we know Apollo was all done on a sound stage. I have Apollo pictures, or I did, because my computer is, hacked like this so often, and they take off my folders and pictures. But the Apollo 11 particularly, if you bring up the contrast in the dark part of the picture, the back, you see ramps and equipment and people standing around. Apollo 11 was as phony as a $3 bill. It never was right. All right, well, we knew that. And in the Magellan series of NASA, they took the first pictures of Venus that we have, and it wasn't a hot planet. It was just green grass and pathways and architecture. And in the Mars rovers series, the Mars rovers, starting 2005, 2006, in 2007, rover Opportunity crashed through a rock face on a rock wall and collapsed it and killed scores of people who were inside underneath. And that started a short war. I have the pictures of that war on Mars at Victoria crater, and it was Cape Verde. Cape Verde is where that battle went on. And then the United States sent a rescue mission that were supposed to show up at Altrea Plateau in order to pick up our scientists who had been there since 1962, except the rescue party went to the wrong location. They went to Victoria Crater instead, and they were captured there. And there was an American woman part of that party, and the Alpha Draconis, by the way, run Mars, They have for years. And so they kept that American woman and tortured her for a whole year before she died. We just don't get true information out of this cabal that is running the United States and Britain. And that's one of the reasons I've pursued the course against the royal house and the Queen, is because she was supposed to be attentive to conflicts of interest. And she was invited to negotiate as part of the team of negotiators for the Greada Treaty. And she stiffed them. She didn't even show up. See, she's supposed to be the Pindar for the covenant of the seed of Abraham going back to Israel at the time of the diaspora. And she has just never picked up on her coronation vows, what they meant. It's just really a sad, sad story there, because in Britain, they don't even know what happened to the 10 tribes of Israel, that they actually were the recipients of the Stone of Scone and that whole covenant, and that they're supposed to carry on the seed of Abraham tradition. They don't even know that. They don't even know that their kings have been the heirs of the line of David going back from Israel. Most people don't have a clue.
Yeah. Could you explain for our audience exactly what the Greada Treaty is?
I wish I could. What I have is a document that was written by Mike Sala at exopolitics.org.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I read his report about it, and the fact that Eisenhower met with the other members of the treaty. It hasn't even been specified who was present in those negotiations and what the exact terms were We don't know. We don't know the terms of the Townine Treaty. Dan Borish was involved in negotiating. We don't know the terms of the TPP treaties that corporations are now independently forging with ETs on their own. And as an attorney, you understand that if we, the people, have no knowledge of these treaties, isn't that in itself is a violation of law, that we're supposed to be informed and Congress is supposed to vote on those treaties, right?
Right. Now, let me bump it up just another level to from that kind of 3D international law level and sort of cosmic law level, to bump it up to an interdimensional level, to the Yahweh level.
To the Yahweh level.
Yeah, and to what we call Pindar. And could you explain to our audience and to me what you mean by Yahweh?
Okay, Yahweh, I know him from the inside for 25 years. And I've been writing down his stuff the whole time and trying to make sense of it and get a coherent story out of it that was reliable, that was his story. You know, the way you talk to me to get me to make sense. Well, that's what I've got from Yahweh over all these years. I started as one of Jehovah's Witnesses way back in 1965 until 77. And then I joined other churches and I finally became part of the Church of England, and that's what I am formally. But they have no concept of Yahweh, that's the name of their God at Psalm 83:18. It's in their Bible. Okay. They don't know him personally. They talk about him in the abstract. So what I found was that he has his own history. His history is articulated in a series of books called The Right Use of Will. And he had a consort by the name of Shekinah, who is known to the Jews. And he and Shekinah didn't get along. They couldn't make it. He has had a lot of problems in this galaxy and in the accompanying galaxy, Sagittarius. And he is ready to move on and to reestablish the idea that the governing of the people must be by the consent of the people. It is at Exodus 19:8 where the Israelites not only stood for the reading of the law, which, by the way, is only 254 legal principles. It didn't take them 99 years to hear it all. There weren't millions of laws in those days. But they actually consented verbally and said, okay, this is what we'll follow this. Now, we human beings who follow more or less in their cultural footsteps should also have the opportunity to say what laws we're willing to accept and adapt to. And that is Yahweh's ultimate premise, that a civil society, like he always wanted to have, has got to be based on consent of the governed.
Now, who is Yahweh, and why does he have any say?
Okay, why does he have any say?
At all? I mean, who is this guy?
Who is this guy? He is a sylph, S-Y-L-P-H. S-Y-L-P-H. He is a sylph. And that means he is a sack with a snake inside, and he floats. He just floats around because his mass is the same wherever he goes. And when he gets angry, he lights up, and the burning bush, okay? And when he gets cold, it rains. That's what I know about his physical. He has no physical sense of discomfort. His only tool is his telepathic ability. That is the only tool he has. He has no physical body like you and I have a physical body, unless he incarnates one on purpose, like a little puppet. Okay. It is said in scripture that his son, his only begotten son, whom he originated without the help of Shekinah, became his word. And the reason is because Yahweh has no voice box. He's non-vocal, non-verbal, just strictly telepathic, which is just like a reptile. And that's why he's called quite often a snake, because inside the sack, he has the form of a snake, but his mind is huge, and he knows sacred geometry and chemicals, and he knows prime number theory to use for language, and he knows mathematics, and he doesn't carry around a laptop, He doesn't need one. He keeps it all in his head.
Right, but that really doesn't say cosmologically what is his relationship
to he is the king. He is the king of the whole self race. SYLPH. That's really close to self, isn't it?
Yeah.
SELF is very close to sylph, SYLPH. But he is the king of the sylph race by virtue of conquest of the sylph race. And he carries the codes. And the reason we live in a geocentric universe is because he is here.
I see.
That's why the universe is geocentric. And that's why what I'm finding out is I have a question in my mind. Are we spinning, or is the universe spinning around us? That's an open question at the moment. I'm not quite sure of that. I know we're in the toroid shape, but are we spinning or is it spinning? I'm not sure.
Right. But Yahweh is not God.
Yes.
Yahweh is just a spiritual entity.
No, well, he is the God, the sovereign for 4 galaxies. That's his boundary, 4 galaxies.
I see.
Because obviously the universe is bigger than can be administered by just one of these sylphs. So he has 4 galaxies to bring up to civil behavior.
Okay. So he's like an interdimensional administrator.
Yeah, but he's got all the codes. He writes the DNA codes, and he assembles a planet at intersecting energy ley lines in space. So he's the architect of the planet. He's the designer of our moon. He's the designer. That's his most beloved little toy. He loves that moon.
And what's the relationship, for example, of Yahweh to Jesus, to the Christ?
He is his literal father.
I see.
Okay. And Jesus was birthed originally as a light in space, and his soul entered into the body of a child, and since Yahweh can cause pregnancies just about anywhere, he didn't have any problem getting Mary pregnant.
I see.
That was not a problem.
Right. Okay. Now, as I understand it, you say that you've been in telepathic communication with Yahweh. Is that the case?
Right. For a long time.
Okay, and you're satisfied that this is Yahweh. This is not anybody else.
Yes, and that's because of the extent of what he knows is so far beyond reckoning that what I'm aware of is how little I am in comparison, and how little our science is. Our science is just little bitty. And the ideologies that we have to deal with here are so puny and puerile and silly compared to he has a magnanimous, benevolent about him that no point of view can attack. Okay, he has a benevolence. He can even talk about some of the real villains in scripture from a point of view in which he is not their victim. He's not the victim of Satan. He's not the victim of Allah. He's not the victim of, if it were any other being, he would be at odds in the incarnate world. But no, he's above it. And that's why I finally said, okay, yeah, this is the one.
Right. Now, that is in common conception, the Pindar is, people say, oh, that's the Rothschild, or oh, that's the Queen of England, but he gave you to understand that you're the Pindar. What exactly is the Pindar?
The Pindar is the primary one that he's talking to now. He's not talking to the Queen now, and he's not, I don't know what he's saying to Rothschild, but it's really clear from Queen Elizabeth's behavior that she's clueless. She doesn't know any of this.
Well, I don't think she's clueless. I think that she's a fugitive criminal.
Well, that could very well be, but even at any level, she doesn't seem to be capable of addressing. I've been writing letters and sending her books and trying to, get her to interact with me, to reply and so forth. And
well, she's your aunt.
She's my cousin, first cousin.
Oh, your first cousin.
First cousin, yeah. She and I are same generation.
I see.
Yeah. But she has been unable in her speeches since I've been writing to her. She is unable to pick up on any of the terms that I'm trying to quiz her about or get her to relate to in the role and function of Pindar. She should know X, Y, and Z. When you're quizzing somebody that matters to you about, you're trying to figure out where they're coming from. Okay, you introduce some terms and technology and some ideas, and you see what they can do with them. She can't. She's in her box.
Well, now there's set to be, today's April 17th, 2015, there's set to be elections on Friday, May 7th. Is Yahweh this entity? Is he or she or it? I don't know. These have gender.
No, actually, he's androgynous. He's
okay.
both.
So
we don't have a word for both.
Yeah. So is he saying that you should pursue your claim to be
Yes.
UK monarch and Pindar? So does that mean that after the elections you're going to renew your claim in the Privy Council and the House of Lords and the House of Commons, or what?
Yes, and I'm at this point negotiating on how to get that done. And it will get done, because what has happened is, because Charles not only violated the same 1772 Marriage Act that my dad violated, but he's going to have to, because it's been so published and because of his relationship to pedophilia has been published, he's going to have to enjoy the same penalty that my dad enjoyed. And what this means is there's nobody to take the throne after Elizabeth, and it's very possible that the monarchy will disband completely.
Completely. In fact, there was now a Daily Mail article, which I saw, which I know that you've seen, that the Archbishop 1936.
Wasn't he terrible?
His letter, where he has now been identified as the person who was at the core of the conspiracy through his false letter to create and manufacture an abdication crisis.
Yeah.
By sending the prime minister then, I think his name was Baldwin, I'm not sure. Yeah, sending him a false letter saying that your father was insane.
Yeah. And
created an abdication crisis so that your father, Edward VIII, had to abdicate so that George VI, who was the half-brother of Adolf Hitler, could come in, and then George VI and Adolf Hitler could then hold World War II as a false flag on behalf of the Rothschilds, and they could maximize the number of deaths for the soul market. Is that?
For the soul market, for the archons, right?
Yeah, the archons, yeah.
Exactly right. Okay, but in the resolution of this conflict, okay, it may need to happen that the British people have to confront what is going on with a little hiatus in the monarchy like they've had before. You know, they had it.
Oliver Cromwell, you mean?
Oliver Cromwell. They may have to go through that, but they may not have to go through that.
Yeah, but all you have to have is simple plebiscite. I mean, we had a plebiscite for Scotland, and in there they completely corrupted the vote. We all know.
Okay,
that.
And that's why this has to happen kind of in an orderly progression, and because Yahweh is so telepathic and can keep so many lines of communication going at the same time. That's why I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I'm just waiting for the British people to realize they've been screwed, for them to realize the level of pedophilia and drug pushing and warmongering is all about ET treaties, and the EU is involved and all of this. It all has to come out. It all has to come out, and I'm set to let that happen. It has. The truth shall make them free. They have to get free.
Yeah, but that's just going to go into the usual sea of mush, and that'll go nowhere. Why don't you go and just push for a crisis and
as soon as the option gets here, as soon as the finances arrive, my kids have made certain promises now. But you have a PayPal account that people can send $5 or $10, and round trips tickets to London from California are pretty cheap now. Yeah, okay. I have friends who are inviting me to stay.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a kind of temporary housing. So I figure I really need to go there around the middle of May.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of planning on.
But if we can get honest voting, and if we can get a hearing either in the Privy Council or in the House of Lords or in the House
it's the Crown Court. The Crown Court told me, I talked to them on the phone.
Oh, good.
They told me that they have jurisdiction.
Oh, the Crown Court. Oh, tell us more about that.
Okay, I called them. Digging around, you find out how things are run. And so what they told me I have to do is to file my case against the Queen here and have the court send it on to Britain, but that costs a couple of $1,000.
File? What costs $1,000 to file?
Because it's a privatized for-profit court in Lake County, California. If I take my case to the Superior Court, they charge me so much a page to make copies of it and to go through their steps, and it ends up being $2,000.
That's a scam. I don't
Tell
get
me
it.
about it. Tell me about it.
I don't get it. No, I mean, that is just.
It's outrageous.
No. I mean, you just might as well, you know, pay a couple of $100 air ticket, walk over there and, you know, walk across the street and drop it in there for, you know.
Yes, exactly. And that's what told me that I had to put up the Fund Me thing, which got taken down. And that,
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to screw with your PayPal.
no, I don't think they will. But in the meantime, my kids have said that they'll back me. Okay.
Oh, good.
My kids are going to back me. Okay.
Good.
And so I'm in the process of making those plans now, how to go, when to go, what friends I can stay with, and so forth. If
either the House of Commons or the House of Lords or whatever does award you the monarchy, would you hold a plebiscite with the British people as to they want a continuation of the monarchy or not after all this?
I think I'm going to watch how people respond to me,
Yeah,
okay, before I decide what to do about that.
yeah,
Because their response so far with the things I've put up and the little talks we've had before and the interviews we had before
yeah.
have been extremely positive.
Oh,
They've
good.
been so nice to me.
Oh, good.
Amazed. I'm just really amazed. Well, I think people are beginning to realize that there's a problem that
Yeah.
has to at least get dealt with.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm going to go there to do. And if they want to give me the job, well, I'll, you know, it's like being in the military. You're working 24/7.
Yeah.
But somebody has to run the tourist business.
Yeah, yeah. Now who would succeed you though?
Well, I have 5 kids. I have an Ann and an Andrew and an Edward.
Now, yeah, but who is the eldest child?
Heather, Ann.
And
He
what?
would do fine.
Who? Heather?
Heather Ann would do fine.
She's qualified and she's ready to do
Absolutely.
the
I'll
job?
tell you, she'll keep everybody running. She's a corker. I mean, at 52, she's a long distance runner with 4 small kids at home, and she runs everybody into the ground. She'll be marvelous.
At it. Okay. Now, I happened to watch this documentary. It was really, really interesting. It's this fellow who went back, and I think it was, what's his name? Edward the Bastard or something. If you happen to watch it. And he went back and he found that break in the British Crown where there was a bastard who went on the throne and there was a Plantagenet who was the actual heir, and he traced it, and he traced that Plantagenet line is a fellow living over in Australia.
Yes, I saw that too. Howlett. Okay, Howlett brought this up. And
Yeah.
I have no problem.
And he actually visited the guy.
Yes, I saw that.
And he's a very fine gentleman. He has daughters, and they oh
If
wow.
he wants the job, he can have the job, okay? I'm not going to get in an ego tug-of-war about it. My job as of now, because not only of the bloodline, but because of my background in conflict analysis, I've been a CEO, because of my work experience, I'm qualified to bring this dispute and conflict to the British people. Now,
Right.
I have a cousin who's in Alaska, Anna von, what's her name? And she's part of the Kaiser Wilhelm part of Queen Victoria's children. And
I
she's
see.
bringing suit. She's bringing suit against the Queen also. I have another cousin in Arizona who's also first cousin to Anna. We who are part of that bloodline are pulling together
I see.
to see what we can do about the fact that the people who are in Buckingham Palace don't know what the coronation vows mean, don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and we're going to want to set the situation aright according to the laws and the will of the people. This is not about what I want, or
Right.
what Howlett wants, or what Anna wants. We have to fix a problem here.
Right.
And Parliament's not doing it. They're just adding more and more confusion to more and more confusion.
Right. So this is kind of getting all of the cabins straight while Earth is being transported over toward Orion. Is that
Right. That's right.
getting all the inner stuff straight?
Okay, it is not just rearranging the decks on the Titanic. You know, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Right.
We're going to make it wherever we're going because we have Yahweh directing the Anunnaki to get us there, the Anunnaki engineers. So we're going to make it, okay? We're going to get to the frontier in time. In the meantime, we got to get our own ship in order. And the bloodline of the Windsors, which goes into Germany and into Russia, okay, that our bloodline is standing for fixing the monarchy. Okay?
So I know that you are a staunch monarchist, and you say that the reason that you're for the monarchy is that it's the best system.
Yeah.
Contrary to what Winston Churchill said, who said, well, democracy is, I forget his quip, but it was some kind of quip, is democracy is the worst form of government, except there isn't any other. So what is your case for monarchy, which is this antiquated system where all of a sudden, you know, you have somebody out in Australia, oh, I'm the monarch. You're in California. It turns out that you're the monarch. It turns out that somebody who's in Buckingham Palace is like, you know, he's corrupt.
But that's not the way it was set up.
I mean, why?
It wasn't set up that way. It wasn't set up that way at all. In the monarchy, in the line of kings that began with King Zephaniah's two daughters and the prophet Jeremiah and Teotepi and in Ireland, the line of kings that were at peace for almost 1,000 years. And they set up the Brehon law system in Ireland. And the king had to abide by the same laws as the people. The king was either elected or appointed by the people. It was more of a republic than a bow down to, and genuflect to a Hollywood style famous person in a new dress every week. Okay, it was a more personal system of selecting the king within the bloodline, okay, because the whole bloodline are intelligent people, intelligent, and they're living by consent to a set of laws that promote public health and promote honesty and promote community. And they got themselves together and chose a king. And I think in scripture, the way they organize is that every group of 10 men elects a leader, and those 10 leaders elect a leader, and those 10 men elect a leader. It wasn't like it is now. It was never intended to be like this. And that's why, you know, we've got to get the bloodline together to talk about who should lead the bloodline, because that's what the covenant is about. Is a group of intelligent people getting together to govern themselves. That's why I say monarchy has been with the Anunnaki for 500,000 years. It can't be that bad.
Well, you know, if we look at the 20th century, I mean, and so far the 21st century, it's mostly about genocide and mass poisoning and attempted depopulation.
Oh no, those people are crazy, the cabal. They're nuts.
Yeah. So how can we deconstruct this cabal and prevent it from ever arising again?
We have to get our hands on those treaties, because those treaties have terms that have to be refuted. I believe that the population reduction is part of those treaties to clear this planet for ETs to take it over. That's
Well,
what that's what
those
I think.
treaties are in a vault at CIA someplace.
Well, they have to be accessed, and
Well, that's true.
And in fact, every once in a while, I send a message to CIA, and I mandate that this, and we should all be doing that. Send a message to CIA and say, hey, you guys have got us all in a prison. We want to be self-governing, free people. Give us the terms of our prison sentences, please, because we don't even have the terms. We don't even know what we're enslaved to.
Why exactly do you think all American presidents have been so chicken shit?
They're paid that way. You know, in the UK now, social services are paid according to the number of cases they have. So what do? They create more problems, so they create more cases.
The only guy who wasn't chicken shit was Kennedy, and they took him out.
They took him out, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we have to get back to basics and back to the theory of operation and back to the circuit diagram, how this cultural machine is supposed to work. We got to throw out the Diebold machines that can be so easily hacked and go back to paper ballots that can be hand counted. Go back to people, throw out all of these telephone messaging machines, throw them in the garbage, answer your own phone, be responsible for what you're doing. This is all being lost.
Right. So what you're saying, just to go back to the critical path method, is this, that right after the May 7th election, you, Pindar, at the direction of Yahweh, are going to, in terms of once you get everything together at a practical level, we'll be going to the United Kingdom.
And filing some papers with the Crown Court.
And filing some papers with the Crown Court. You have already filed a claim, so they're on notice with the Privy Council, with the House of Lords, and with the House of Commons, which have the general facts.
And I'm going to have to line up some people to stay with because I can't afford a hotel.
Yeah. So you've been doing that, and in the article accompanying this, people know how to reach you, and also there's your book, so that people who want to know the background here.
Yes, the books are selling. Books are selling.
Yeah, so that as you've written a book as daughter of King Edward VIII, you've shown all of the background here. Even in the Daily Mail, they've published the letter of the, I think his last name was Cosmo, wasn't it, or something? His first name's the Archbishop of Canterbury of the time. It's now been proven that his fraudulent letter to Prime Minister Baldwin, UK Prime Minister Baldwin, actually it was a false flag. They manufactured the abduction crisis in order to push out Edward VIII, who was a starseed, put in George VI, who was Luciferian, so that his half-brother, Luciferian Adolf Hitler, they could do the false flag of World War II, and, with the Rothschild gang, and the Draconians continued the soul trade out of this planet. Okay, well, very interesting indeed.
I got my marching papers, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's marching papers, but this started out as a program on celestial architecture, and ended up as a program on the UK people's.
But it's all the same story. It's the same story.
Responsibility of self-government.
Yes, because that's what Yahweh gives us 7 covenants. The first one was stewardship of the planet that he gave to Adam, and the second one was survival in the time of Noah, and the third one was literacy that he gave to Abraham, and the fourth one was common law that he gave to Moses, and then the fifth one was the diaspora, learning mobilization and how to get out of the way of trouble, and then the next one was schooling intentions, which Jesus taught out of the law. It isn't enough just to follow the behavior. You've got to have the correct intention to go with it. And the seventh one is the Sabbath day of God. And so we don't just have one lesson, one message here. We have a group of skills that we need to develop as a civilization. And the ones who follow Yahweh's program of developing skills end up having the skills of leadership who can reign over, not rule, but reign over a diverse planet. And that is the whole point. It's not just about doing something here. It's about doing it here so well, so beautifully, that it becomes the example demonstrated for the rest of the planet. Not as a matter of conquest, not as a matter of being predators or parasites on the rest of the planet, but a matter of serving as the role model that the other nations envy and admire. Not what we've got now.
So would you say that another way of expressing it is that the point of the journey is not the destination, but the journey itself?
Well, certainly. It's the processes we have to learn along the way so we achieve wisdom. You know, we have to get some wisdom along the way.
Very, very good. We've sort of come to the end of this this segment. Do you have any overall thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to when I was a kid and living in a great deal of confusion. And I was able, out of my own child resources at the age of 6, to realize that I needed some direction. And so I did a couple of things as a young child, even though they were kind of silly at the time. At 6, I started going to church by myself, into a church that offended me. And the only reason I went was because it made me feel better. Doing something to make yourself feel better so you can get on with your life is not a bad thing to do. And I don't regret to this day that I did that. The second thing that I did as a child, I was 12 years old, and I went to the local drugstore where they had all the magazines, and I bought this little 25-cent paperback book about space travel. I don't remember what the title was or anything, but in it, what I read was a mental exercise in order to swallow the whole universe and have a map of the universe in your mind. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea. And so I did it, age 12. After that, people thought I was pretty weird. But what that did for me was help me to realize that all existence has a coherent pattern to it. You can find what matches and what works together. You don't have to be confused, and you don't have to accept confusion. You don't have to accept distractions. You can have a whole mind even in the middle of chaos, and I grew up in chaos. And those are the 2 lessons I learned as a child that have helped me to get to the point of understanding where I can lay out the whole situation and it makes coherent sense to me now. As a child, you can really have a big impact on your own future. And a lot of grown-ups have never confronted themselves that way. So that's my thought.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And we look forward here to your joining us again as your journey
Well, we'll talk in May.
progresses.
Yes. And in the meantime, yes, I'm trying to get the funds together, and my PayPal account is Chaya, Chai, which was my grandmother's name, Yah, Y-A-H for Yahweh, at gmail.com. And any donations that I get will be put to this project.
Wonderful.
Thank you. It's been
Well, thank you very much. And as they say, the force is with you, and bon voyage.
We'll see you, friend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.